farming's been around for a long time, and people are going to no-till. Why is that? We're here to talk about tillage versus no-till.
I'm going to explain to you why I think no-till is a better farming practice in today's society, and yeah.
Okay. I have a point where warm soil in the spring will help. Again, feel better when it's wet. Like clay-based soils will have a hard time drying up in the spring to get in the field. And if you get them in the field early, you get potentially better yields later on in the fall.
I agree with what you're saying, but if you're constantly tilling, like, all the time, that you're going to have a higher chance of erosion because your seed bed's going to be a lot softer and it's going to be more prone to wind and water erosion.
Okay, talking about seed beds, why would you want a seed bed that's hard and compacted with no-till? You're just going to put more wear and tear on your planter.
That might be a point that you could say, but I also think that it is a proven fact and there's more knowledge gained every day because it's becoming a very popular practice to where it is better. And I think that constant tillage decreases percentage of organic matter every year. So I think that no-till prevents that to a certain extent.
Okay, what about clay-based soils where you almost have to till to work up the ground a little bit? Do you have any opinions on that?
Well, I don't disagree that there's different soil types are going to be better for different practices, but maybe minimalistic till is, I think, better than full-on constant tillage.
Okay. What about crop rotation, corn on corn on corn, like these big cattle farmers where they have, they have to have that corn in to have silage, to have, dry corn, high moisture, and then they have to make some money off some crops, so they have to plant more corn to get that amount of money.
I understand that from like a feedlot's perspective, but you're going to be putting in more of an input cost just to keep that yield up to where you wouldn't necessarily have to do that if you switched crops, cover crops and different rotations and stuff.
Okay, talking about cover crops, what's the main purpose on a cover crop? Can you tell me?
It's to increase your organic matter. It gives the soil something different, some more trash and stuff, I guess, that's going to benefit your soil long term.
Okay, so why, so in soils, like Jeff York was talking about how cover crops can get down in the ground, and you could do that plowing with like a DMI per se, get 6 inches deep, or 3 to 2 chisel plow. What are your opinions on that? Like, what's the difference there? You're still gonna have that cover out there if you disc it, and if you go with a chisel or plow, you're gonna dig that under, and the microorganisms will just eat that up.
I think in that case, a lot of cover crops usually can burn them down with a chemical instead of having to go in there and work them under, because oftentimes they won't die and you'll have like carryover. Basically, they'll become volunteer weeds if you don't get rid of them when it comes to your next crop. So I think that's why I think not doing anything with them except maybe spraying would be better than tillage.
Okay, so I know a couple people that put cover crop out, and I'm all for cover crop, but a lot of these other farmers say you're going to save so much money, no tilling, and you do. You save a little more money by not going out there and tilling up the land, but cover crop, some people you say you save money on that, and I don't see how you save money on that. You still have that seed to buy. You still go out there and plant it. And I get it if you have cattle, that's a great way to mix up the soil and whatever, but why would cover crops benefit, say like a crop farming?
Well, some of them can be harvested depending on what you planted, obviously, but it costs money, obviously, but it's still fairly cost effective, I think, because it's not as expensive as corn. Soybeans are usual everyday crops that we're using, and it does benefit the soil, gives it more microbes and this and that. So it's kind of give or take whatever you're more interested in.
Okay. Talking about like seed beds, back to seed beds. Why would you want to have almost a hard pan? You know, like when you're done harvesting, it's, you know, the ground's hard. Why put a seed in the ground and have it struggle going through that hard pan on top of it?
Well, the whole point of it, I think, is to try to break up your hard pan, which can be developed from long-term tillage at the same depth, unless you have different tillage practices. But the whole point of planting a cover crop is to break up your hard pans and aerate your soil more through like natural ways of growing crops instead of going in there and ripping the dirt up.
Okay. My conclusion is that I believe that tillage is better. I mean, different situations. If you want your cover, if you want, you know, that cover out there, then disc it. And if you don't want that cover and you want it under or anything, I mean, I would definitely put a chisel out there at least. And if you don't want to put a chisel, then, you know, put cover crops out there. That's fine, but you still have to be aware of. I mean, you're still making those passes with the cover crop. If you don't have cattle, you have to get it out in the fall or the spring usually. So I believe tillage is better.
I believe no-till is better because certain years you're not going to get as much rain as you would other years. It's not a gravy train every year. So you got to make do with what you can, and I feel like no-till, you can last a lot longer with less moisture. But obviously it all does depend on your soil types. But in my area where I'm from, I think it's just a better practice, and overall I think it is.